Hoi hoi, welcome to the channel. Just going to go over a few things today. We'll start off with going backwards, engineering for UEFN with Fortnite. I'm going to go backwards, starting with the Unreal Editor on how to import your own models, that you can have your own tiles that match up within Fortnite itself with your own textures and information on it, so it will actually start to look really cool. Alright, so I'll just start by going over what I already have, and because my laptop is very slow, decided to put it in quickly already, just to show off that, so I can close this down because it chews a lot of memory. Alright, so I've done a ground block to quickly throw in, which has been imported in. So the best way to do that is using your content drawer, opening up where you want to actually have it, having a folder specifically for your models, and then breaking everything up so that you can find things fairly easily. It's good to have good organization, and we can go from there. Alright, we'll grab our imported block, which is this one here. This has the same size base as the general Fortnite 1:1 scale tile, as you can see, but I have done it 1:1 the entire way around. Obviously you can make things however you would like within Fortnite UEFN, but that's just a personal preference. And that is a custom texture that I've made myself, and I'll go over the programs and everything you need to do these sort of things all yourself, right from scratch, right from pretty much your idea. Alright, so, and that becomes a fully movable, usable object. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll close that down so that I get a bit of memory space back, and show you the model and then also the texturing process. So just save that on our way out as well. Alright, so the programs I like to use are Blender and Sketchbook. Blender being the 3D modeling program and Sketchbook being the artwork program. I'll have a preloaded model for us to look at so that it's easy to use. I'm just going to have to drag that over in a second. Drag that over. Alright, so I'll grab ground block number 1. Alright, so that's the model with the texture applied. And Blender is probably one of the best programs to use when starting out, as it is free, and it is actually very well run and very well documented and used by a lot of people. So what I'll show you first is, we'll go an image. Let's go over to here. We have the panels that we need to keep open of the editor type. We're going to make a floor type using the nodes, and which is this here, and then having our base color needs to be the file that we're using to texture it. And we're going to go over into our other panel over here and have an editor type which allows us to do the UV editor, and that is basically mapping the entire surface of the cube that we have here. And the good thing about the cube is that it's a basic element that you can work with to start getting your own things into Fortnite, and you can actually increase your model depth and density as you go, but be mindful that every time you do so, the model will actually become more and more high definition and require more memory to load. So you want to kind of optimize things right from the very beginning. Alright, so if I switch this to editor mode, you'll actually see all the points, which allows us to move things. I'll go over that in a second. Back to object so I don't wreck it. What I'm going to do is actually change the texture on here to a steel block. I've just made this earlier so that we can actually see what it does when we load it on straight up into the steel block, which is good. And on here, I actually put that there as well for editing. Alright, so that's fully textured, ready to go. I can export that straight out as a model and put that directly into Fortnite from there. Alright, so what I'm going to do, just to show you how it works in here, enter edit mode. Now, clicking and holding onto each of these and then holding shift will actually add the selections on. You have to be very careful when you're actually modeling not to grab too many things all at once, because you can wreck your model very, very quickly. So just selecting and highlighting will give you the panels, and as you'll see on the top of the bottom here, that is actually where the textures are being pulled from. Each of these little squares is one of these. So a good way to do this, let's just grab this side panel here. Okay. Oop. Get rid of that. Come down in here and you can actually see there is a full square there that aligns with that texture. Now I want to show you what actually happens with this. We're going to go G to transform, which goes all wonky, and because this is a 2D pane, there's an X-axis, which means we'll be locked into that. So if you hit the X key, or if you hit the Y key, it locks you on the Y-axis, so you can actually go up and down. And as you'll see on the actual image, it changes based on where you put the cube, or where you put those points, because it correlates to that on the actual model. Alright, so undo that so that's all back where it was. This allows us to actually put any kind of image on any surface from within a texture. You can put whatever you want, really. So I've just made a metal cube. Very, very basic. Very, very easy. I'll go over a couple of little points on how to actually model. If I grab the top surface here, you'll see in the controls on the side here, there's a few other different options where we can rotate, we can move it, we can scale it, we can transform it, we can annotate, measure, add an extra model on top of this, or we can do some funky things, which is extruding a region, or inserting faces, or beveling, and loop cutting. So probably beveling is the best one to show what can happen. So a bevel is already added to the cube. If I actually grab this little knob here and go again, you'll see that an extra set gets added to that bevel. Now this increases, as I said before, how much memory your file is going to have. However, at this size, that's really not much at all. So you can make it a bit smoother, you can make it a bit simpler, it's up to you entirely, but this is a really good way to start modeling things like chests or containers that you want to actually put in your world, or basic blocks. So a good way to change things up, grab a surface. We're not going to actually put the bevel in, we're just going to grab the full surface. And the other way we can do things is by extruding, which is to pull on that and lock it to the Z-axis so that it doesn't go too crazy. You can do it to the X-axis, which goes wonky. We can do it to the Y-axis, which goes wonky that way. But that's entirely up to you how you actually want to do it. So the 3D modeling is very, very simple, very, very basic. And that just allows us to put textures directly on the cube. Alright, so I'll save that. And the fun way to do this, drop out to Sketchbook and just show you, I've got a few here that I've already started up. The basics with the actual texturing. Now Blender itself likes to use a 1028 by 1028 square, and I've already got one pre-saved, so all you have to do is open one that's very, very basic. Here we go. That's the ground texture tile that I did earlier, and that allows me to make cubes and boxes all through this. And this program is very, very handy based on what you want to do with your textures. So just basic colors with small amounts of texture can add so much depth to your own little models that you make. You can do just basic color if you wanted to, but with the program, these little brushes that you get in here will allow you to do so much more and open up the possibilities. So just to show a very simple, let's grab this color version of this. I'll add a new layer so I don't wreck the one that I'm actually on. On here we're going to increase our brush size so it's nice and large, get bigger again, and you can see that up the top there. We'll just drag that over. What we'll do is use our transform button to increase the size and move the position. So our grass is going to change slightly, and it's as easy as that. You can decrease the opacity so that it looks like just a small amount of texture just gets added to the block that you're on. Alright, there's really not huge amounts I can show you on this one. We just hide those, pull up a new layer. A good way to start, and I do this with almost every single image that I do, is to actually color fill from the bottom. I'll get rid of that so that it's a nice smooth transition, and I'll always base it on something that I've got as a standard color. So let's go with the deserty sort of biome. I'll put that in. Grab that again, but we'll go darker. It's not too bad. We'll drag that up. That's pretty good. Alright, and best way and best practice with this program is to add a new layer, which is like a transparent thing, so every time you do something over the top it's actually going to change the way that it looks slightly. Let's grab that, make it a bit darker again. From everything we have there, brush size, let's crank it right up. Drop that back down, and then what we're going to do is just drop that opacity right back, so you get just a little bit of texture in there. And then you have to think about, when you go to model it, what you're going to do with your textures and what you're going to make it look like. Is it going to be cracked? Is it going to be clean? Is it going to have plants on it? All that sort of stuff. You have to account for it in the actual texture that you make, and have where you're going to put the blocks. So let me just go down here. With this, there's a wonderful set of textures that you can use for things like clouds and trees and grunge, making things look dirty and scratched. Should save you a lot of time. So things like the grass, right? Let's get a nice grassy color. Looks a little bit different to everything else. That's going to rotate me around crazy. Let's grab that, shrink that down. I do find when making grass that it's a good idea to put a little bit of shading underneath. Now the best way to do shading is actually grabbing black, grabbing an airbrush, reducing the flow right down, and just putting a little bit underneath. So I've got a layer that's too far below. Right, with the airbrush, just make it look nice. What you do is actually, if you find you're having too much shadow in there and it looks too dark, is you drop the opacity right back down again to find the exact spot where it kind of looks okay. And then what you can do is merge that one with below. What we'll do is duplicate the layer and move it. Do that a little bit, rotate a little bit. And when trying to be random, it's always a fun little exercise just to try and make things look very different to what they actually are. Don't forget to change things in the way of size, and if you go up here you can actually flip the layer, mirror the layer, which then becomes very handy for putting things next to each other. Let's increase that size a little bit, and then you can combine them, make your own, basically your own little layers, and you can put on and off. Let's merge those two together, duplicate, rotate around, right, and that becomes very easy. We can do is merge all that together, duplicate that, grab our transform. What we'll do is actually flip that layer, make it look a little different. Alright, let's grab this guy here, move that. Alright. So as basic as that is, what I would like is that stuff to be smaller, a lot smaller. We'll put it over in this corner because that's where we can stick it on the cube. Alright, so we're going to have on the top of our cube that we make is going to be the grass. Down the bottom of it, I'd like to have cracks. So just go see if there's any pre-made crack stamps that are very easy for us to use. What do we got here? Flame. Rock detail. That's actually probably a good one to go with. Let's go add a new layer. We've got the rock detail and the size of the brush is ginormous. Let's do that. And what we'll do is the old trick of lower that opacity right down. I'm actually not a fan of that detail. Let's get rid of that. Go again. Rock bark. That might work. So you can change your brush types to erase as well as glow, standard, smudge, whatever. The standard I find works best for just straight up image dropping. Let me just see if I can increase the size of that. It's not the greatest image for cracks. It works, but it's not the greatest. Let's grab that one. Do the same trick again. I'm going to increase the size, rotate it slightly. Let's increase the size again. Nope, not going to like me. That's fine. Drop that back a bit. And creative, you just gotta learn to be creative with your brushes just as much as you are with anything else. Looking for spills. Around the grunge texture is probably a good way to go actually. Just bear with me while I try and figure out what I'm going to use. Just rotate through. Till I find something decent. That might be the way we go. Maybe not. Like with all things, it's going to be a little bit of trial and error to find out the right one. I might just have to draw it myself. Alright, well we'll just go with the surface foam. Delete that, open that. Bring that to a standard. Yeah, that'll do. Okay. Let's flip that over. About the capacity. Get rid of that. And get rid of that. And this one here. Just going to increase the size so it covers the bottom of it. Alright, put it up probably about halfway up. And the reason I want to do that is because at the very bottom I'm going to chuck in again a base color. So let's grab that color from there and we might drop it down a little bit darker. Hit our fill, do that, grab our little bit darker again. Actually I might go a little bit lighter. Let's grab that again. About halfway through and grab our rock detail. That looks pretty good. There we go, so now we have defined areas within the actual texture for what we want to do. Let's save that as floor tile number 5. Yes, I'm happy with that. Drop out of there, back into Blender, and let's have a look. Alright, let's change change our texture over. Boom. Does not look good, which is pretty much exactly what I was hoping for. Right, floor tile 5, because now I can actually go over what we need to do on the block. Right, the first panel, let's grab. We can see that it's actually not in its correct positioning at all. So what we're going to do is actually grab these two. We're going to hit G to transform, and we're going to go Y, so it's only going up and down. Lower that down below the grass. Grab this two here. G again, Y, and drag it up. Alright, so when you see the surface at the bottom, that's what it's going to look like. And what we're going to do is slowly rotate around and do all of these panels the same way, because when we get to the top, we're going to change our cube to that section. So drop that down, drag that up. Now the reason I do this one panel at a time, I will show you in just a second, is this section here. The sections actually all get muddled up really badly because they all tie each other in. Alright, so on the top you can see we do not have what we want, which looks all streaky, because this is our previous texture. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab those two, bring that over, fix those, whoop. Fix that up. Try and get that fairly square. Okay. Drag that all the way over. And then drag that down. As you can see, as we do it, the texture comes into line pretty well. So the top of our brick looks like that, and the bottom of our brick is all looking like it's pretty much in line. What I'll do is just grab this here. Yeah, you can see it's all down the bottom. Perfect. What I'll do is make this look a little bit nicer by dragging it up higher. Gives it a bit more definition and detail in that. So the more detail you put in your image into your cubes, the better they look, right? So the reason why we do not grab all of the cube at once is you can see all these panels are tied in together, and they will try to, when you move one, it will try and move multiple points. So we don't want to do that. Alright. That is quite simply the easiest way to make dirt blocks and cubes and your own textures inside UEFN. Alright, because that there will be a simple export again. And that will be desert block. And I'll track that on the desktop to use later. Alright, probably the only other thing I will go over on this video is switching back to edit mode. I'm just going to drop this. Right, so the flooring of it's same transform tool, so if you drop it all the way down, you almost have the same heights and structure as the Fortnite floors. Now I've obviously got the bevel on there. You can get rid of that pretty easily. It depends what you want to make, really. As you learn the tools and get used to these things, it's just going to have to be gradually understood. And that's about it for this particular session. That's a basic one. I will try to record more of these and load them up with making models themselves for usage. So we won't save that because I've already done it. Thank you for watching. If you find it helpful, save the video for later, and we'll catch you later.